I run a small department of 5 people who do what we call news applications. The people who work for me are both journalists and software developers, so they do their journalism using software in the same way that a photojournalist uses photographs to do journalistic work. And we do large interactive database projects that tell stories. So recently we did a news application called Dollars for Docs, which let people see for the first time, based on data from many pharmaceutical companies, whether their doctor was taking payments from pharmaceutical companies for things like speaking engagements and research and consulting and things like that. So what we like to say is that we do these large interactive databases that not only tell a story, but that tell your story, you personally, so that let you see in a big data set what the stakes are, what your stake is in a big story. You know, how does it relate to your home, your town, your school, yourself? It's like an online database where you can look up, your town or your address and see, based on a very specific, subject, how it relates to that. So you can look up your doctor, you can look up your school, you can look up your teacher, you can look up, your county. We did a project where you could look up your county or your zip code and see the economic stimulus money it got. Did they get a new bridge over a river that we here in New York might not know, but you may know there's a bridge 200 meters away. You don't need that bridge, or there's a bridge, that there's another bridge that's in far worse shape. So it's a way to let our readers understand the importance of a story by searching through it or by taking action that make it relate to themselves. Oh, I like to think so. I mean, I think that both approaches are very good, and both approaches definitely have their place. I certainly think that no journalist can be everywhere at once. No journalist can do every single example and make it local for every single person who's going to read the story. But a news application can. It can be very widespread and make a story very understandable for a lot more people by being able to let you find yourself. We certainly are getting access to a lot more data. The tools are becoming much more sophisticated to monitor and to tell stories that 10 years ago were not possible. An example that I like to talk about, every 10 years in the United States, we change the apportionment of congressional seats based on population shifts. And this is all spelled out in the law and the Constitution how this works. The tools that were used, the geographic tools that were used to do this and to examine how this was done, have grown exponentially, have become much, much more sophisticated since the last time we did this. We do it every 10 years, so we did it in 2000. We're doing it again in 2010. It's related to the United States Census. The tools that we're able to both monitor and to affect this process in 2000 are light years behind where we are in 2010. So it radically alters both the thing itself and our ability, the sophistication of our ability to monitor that and to make sure that it's done in an honest way, to make sure that it's done, all of our responsibilities as journalists, to make sure that we're bringing accountability to the people who are doing those things. Yes, we use news applications. One of the very first crowdsourcing things we did was we asked our readers to look at stimulus projects. This is when America had a big economic stimulus program, which took the form of infrastructure projects like bridges and new tunnels and new buildings and things like that. And we took a sample of them, a valid, statistically random sample, and we asked readers to go to those places and see if the project had started and to tell us anything that they could tell us about what was going on. And this was done essentially as a news application. This was a very sophisticated kind of tabular data where it said, here's the project, here's what's supposed to be happening, here's the address, here it is on a map. Can you sign up and tell us that you're going to go and claim this, and you're going to go look, and then helps follow up and gets the person to write down, it hasn't started, but there's a truck there, that kind of thing. And that's very much, in my head anyway, a news application. It is certainly journalism's challenge, right? Now we have access to a lot of things that we might not have had access to before, and what do we do with it? And how do we now find, whereas what before was hidden behind a cloak is now hidden in a torrent of information. And how do you deploy tools that let you find the story in a vast waterfall of data? Because it is just as effective to hide something in that as it is to just keep it behind a wall. So I think that the open data movement provides an enormous opportunity for journalists to find things that were hidden before, to let them understand processes that were difficult to understand before, and to bring accountability to people who used to work in the shadows. Well, there are several. I certainly think Zeit online has done spectacular work. I can think specifically about they did a map of whether you live near nuclear power facilities, and you could pull a little bar and you could see, would I be affected by this kind of disaster, bigger and bigger disaster, which I thought was a fantastic visualization, fantastic use of data. The Guardian in the UK also does terrific work, especially around crowdsourcing. They did a project on the Member of Parliament expenses, which is famous and deserves all of the praise that it gets. And I would also say that there's an organization in France called ONI, which also does excellent work. Sure. I certainly think that ProPublica has proven that it's a very effective model, and I think that, it will be an important one going forward. And I do think that investigative journalism, is and should be seen as a public good, and that, we should have places where we can pursue big projects and be outside of the kind of economic difficulties that newspapers are seeing themselves in. We don't want to lose, what's impactful in society about journalism while it is being upheaved as a business. There are countries with far fewer resources that have papers that do amazing data projects that absolutely contradict the idea that it's difficult, that it's impossible, that it's only for big, sophisticated newsrooms. The tools are getting easier and easier. The excuses for not doing them are getting less and less.